The economist joke that I told a couple years ago, so everybody's forgotten it, but is one of my favorites. A new CEO was appointed to a company, and he had some top advisors, and he decided to test them to see who he could trust and how smart and how accurate they were. So he called in his chief engineer, his chief accountant, and his chief economist. And one by one, he had them come in his office. And he asked the engineer, he says, what's 2 plus 2? He says, well, it's 4.0 exactly. He said, okay, thanks. So he sent him out. Sent in the accountant. The accountant came in and says, what's 2 plus 2? And he says, well, it's 4 plus or minus, half a percentage point for shrinkage and depreciation. He said, okay. So he sent him out and he called in the economist and he says, what's 2 plus 2? He said, wait a second. He went, pulled the shades down, shut the door, scooted his chair right up to him and said, what do you want it to equal?
Thanks for that, John. A couple other things that I want you to notice is our next meeting is off-site. Am I correct? It's up at Cox Automotive. When you register, you'll get the address for that. So make sure you make plans to join us up there. One last thing before I bring our speaker up. We give scholarship, at least one scholarship a year to a deserving student. And we invited Gisun Kim, our recipient from this past year, to come join us today. He was not able to make it, but he sent a very nice thank you note that you'll see scrolling up here. He's just not able to be here. I believe he's back in South Korea, if I'm not mistaken, and he's just sends his thanks. He really appreciates that. All right, let's. I want to bring up our special guest here. Dan Corso is the president of the Atlanta Sports Foundation. Atlanta Sports Council. Sorry about that. And Dan and I work together, but he's been doing this a long time. Matter of fact, during Dan's tenure, for 4 different times, they have been named the Sports Commission of the Year by the National Association of Sports Commissions. So 4-time winner. Dan is a graduate of Florida State University, a former Leadership Atlanta class of 2017, Rotary Club, board of the Atlanta Convention and Visitors Bureau and College Football Hall of Fame. And he was named one of the Atlanta Business Chronicle's most admired CEOs in 2024. So welcome, Dan Corso.
Thank you for having me. Thank you. Nice to be with you.
Well, Dan, we appreciate you coming and joining us today. We're going to talk about sports. We're going to talk about economics. We're going to talk a little bit about everything. But one of the things I want you to explain to the folks is, how did the Atlanta Sports Council end up being part of the Metro Atlanta Chamber? How did that happen?
Yeah, it's a good question. And first of all, nice again to be with you all. Has anyone heard of the Atlanta Sports Council? I hope you have. Show of hands, couple? Yeah. We're in our 40th year. We were formed in 1985 as part of the Metro Atlanta Chamber, as Dr. Parrish mentions. And we were not the first sports commission in the country. Indianapolis was the first. Eli Lilly put a lot of money into that organization and started the Indiana Sports Foundation. Now, across the country, there's a sports council, sports commission, sports foundation in every major city in America, and a lot of secondary markets as well. And we all exist to do the same thing. We compete to recruit and host sporting events in our respective cities. Now, the scale of those events depends on the market, obviously. So here at Atlanta, we like to go after the biggest sporting events in the world. Other cities potentially don't have that capability of hosting large-scale events, so they go after smaller events, but yet those smaller events are still impactful to their respective communities. So our beginning was back in 1985, and it was really more of a lead-up to the run for the Olympics. We were involved as an organization in that process. which started in that time period a little bit later in the 80s. But the forefathers of the organization within the chamber said we need an organization that is dedicated to economic development through sports and sporting events. And so we were born. I have been with the organization since 1999, so going on my 26th year. It's been an honor. It's a great organization. I know we'll talk a little bit more about it, but I see this position as a position. It's not a job. What I like about it is there's only one of us in the community, and we exist to work with partners in the community to make a difference in this community, and we do it through sports, so that's pretty cool as well. But it's not exactly the stick and ball and the competitive side of sports. It's more on the business side of sports, which keeps it interesting.
It's a great compliment too to our economic development organization that we have within the chamber. You know, anytime you bring in these big events, a lot of economic activity happens. We'll talk a little more about that. But you guys, I know, serve as host committee for a lot of these events. And once you win, I'll ask you about the bidding process in a little bit. But you know, when I look at it, you guys don't have very much staff to be a host committee and make sure all the trains are running on time and everything. You know, how many folks do you have that work there with you? And what do you do to, you know, get help from outside to put on these events?
Because we're such a small staff and team. You're right there. You know, we are a 501c6 nonprofit, a part of the Metro Atlanta Chamber, division of the Metro Atlanta Chamber. And I should point out that when I mentioned every market has a group like ours, that's accurate. But we are the only one of our kind that is part of a chamber, a local chamber across the country. Most sports councils or commissions are either independent organizations or they're part of their local convention and visitors bureau, because the way the CVB is funded is through hotel motel tax. Well, if an entity is bringing in sporting events to fill motel rooms, that tax goes back to the CVB, which then funds the operation of the sports council. So we're different in that regard, in that we're privately funded. We're a private organization inside the Metro Atlanta Chamber. And quite frankly, I really like that. I love having the connectivity to the business community, because the business community, in addition to the public agencies, the state and the city and the counties, are what really help drive our business. And I know we'll talk a little bit about external partners. But so a little bit more context on our existence and our position within the Metro Atlanta Chamber. We have, including myself, a staff of 5. So we are lean and mean. I think we punch above our weight, as the saying goes. I've had staff now, two of our staff members have been on the team now going on 14 years. So we have very little attrition, and I think that's a compliment to the kind of the culture that we built as a team. Being lean and mean, I think, allows our staff, even though we have staff that are skilled in certain work streams that we need to do our business, whether that be fundraising, marketing, communications, business development. I like to cross-train our staff. To keep it fresh, and therefore we all are kind of in the same sandbox. Let's all make sure we can lean on each other and count on each other to help us out on whatever piece of work that we're doing for the project. So I think that's part of our success, is that we've got people who are dedicated, but also they have expanded their roles a little bit and really their skill set. So but when we get into the planning phase, and we'll talk about this a little bit, of the events that we secure, we need more than 5 people to put on an event. World Cup, college football championship game, the Super Bowl, you need more than 5. So short of going out and hiring people for that specific event, our model is to go to the stakeholder and the organizations that we partner with and utilize their staff. So kind of an executives on loan for a period of time. And they're funded through their respective organizations, but their time is dedicated to the work that we have to do to put on the event. So that process begins when we get an event and secure an event for the city, for the region. We will form a separate nonprofit within the Atlanta Sports Council, and it's we call it a host committee. Back in the day, it used to be an LOC, local organizing committee, if you remember ALOC for the Olympics. Now the term has changed over the last 10, 15 years, and it's a host committee, but it serves as the same thing. It's the entity that is formed to interact and contract with the event rights holder. to make sure that that event goes on the way they expect it to and the way we expect it to here locally. So we add staff to that host committee, not just from our sports council staff, but from organizations perhaps like the stadium, if it's an event inside Mercedes-Benz Stadium, City of Atlanta, the Georgia World Congress Center Authority, the ACVB, and several others. We'll bring their staff in and we'll organize the event as needed per the contract with the event.
It's fascinating to watch them work too, and the amount of people that are coming and going out of our office working on sports issues from a lot of the companies around. Well, let's back up a little bit. I know part of the process of what you guys do is you have to submit bids for these major events, and I'm going to have to guess because all the dollars that are involved for a city that gets to host something, that they're super competitive. Tell me about the bidding process. How long, how far in advance you typically get notice. How long does it take? What does a bid package look like that you're submitting to, say, a Super Bowl or even the World Cup or anything? Tell us kind of the mechanics of how all that stuff works.
So I mentioned I've been with the organization for 26 years, so a lot has changed, and thank God for technology. It has changed that process of bidding on events. I'll give you a real live example. So we successfully recruited last year the right to host the men's Final Four in 2031. We were supposed to host the men's Final Four in 2020, but as we all know, the tournament and everything, sports world and everything else shut down because of COVID. So therefore the tournament was canceled. We did not host. The bid that we submitted for the 2020 Final Four was done back in 2014, 6 years in advance. We were just laughing about this a little while ago because I still have the binders of paperwork that were used to submit in that bid. I'm talking binders this thick and dozens of them, hotel contracts, other types of contracts, maps, all of these types of things that are required when you're bidding on an event. We used to do with paperwork, right? 10 years ago. But now technology's changed and it's all digital. So it's all SharePoint, and now you're just uploading documents into the cloud of the event owner. So it makes the process a little bit more efficient. It certainly has allowed us to shorten the timeline and the need of gathering materials. But our process is this. When we get an RFP from a big event that says, hey, we are interested in looking for a host for this event in this particular year, we are the kind of the lead in the market where they will send that to. We'll take a look at it. And our process is this. If the hotels are available, we have a shot at it. If the hotels are available and the facility, whether it be State Farm Arena or Mercedes-Benz Stadium or any other, is available and interested, then we go for it. Those are the two main things. You can't have a big event in the city if you have no place to stay, correct? And Atlanta, as you well know, is a top 5 convention city. So those conventions are booked years in advance. So we have to find those areas within the openings to where not only is the convention center space open, which we need for big events, but that the hotels are available and open and that we need for big events. So if we can get past that hurdle, then we go to the venue and say, okay, here's the date patterns, here's the requirements. Are you available? Do you agree with the requirements? What do we need to push back on? What do we need to negotiate on? And if we can get through those 2 steps, then we've got an opportunity. Then we look at, will this event make sense for the region? Is this a good fit? Is the timing correct? What do we have the year before this year? What do we have during the same year? What do we have the year after it? Because at some point in time, while we want to host every sporting event in the world as many times as we can, and we do, you got to be strategic as how you kind of space those out a little bit. So, and we can get to that when we talk about what the future looks like. So we kind of had that analysis with partners and figure, okay, we've got capability from a hospitality standpoint. We've got a venue that's willing to host it, and we've got a reason to pursue, and we think we can make a good effort for it. We don't mind going after events if we don't think we're going to get it, just kind of keep us in the running. You never want to turn something down really, because then you get passed over in the next cycle. So there is a relationship factor there with the NFL or the CFP or the NCAA or those larger event owners that you kind of have to kind of go through their process. But most times when we put a bid in, we're serious and going to try to get it. So I think that kind of takes you through the kind of where it started, a bunch of paperwork. But right now, what it is, going to, and again, I've been doing it a long time, and I really like where we're going. Some of my counterparts might disagree across the country, but it's not necessarily a bid process anymore, where you're competing against Dallas or Miami or LA, and you go in and you make a presentation to a group, and one city's happy and three aren't, and that there's a lot of time and effort and money that goes into that process, and you never want to walk out and not win. What's happening now, and I like this, it's called soul sourcing. So events will identify markets that they actually want to go to. They'll have a couple of years, and they'll say, hey, are you available? Are you interested? Here's our 2 or 3 years that we're looking at. And then we can get in there and start saying, yes, this year is the best one. Here's our second best year. Here's our third best year. So long as you make the requirements of what they're asking you to do, and as long as you have a compelling hosting offer and hosting bid, usually you can kind of pick your year. So I kind of like that. That goes back to the strategy of placing the events where you can, to make sure that the frequency is spread out enough to where we're not stepping on event after event after event.
That's interesting. I didn't know that was changing, so that was fascinating for me too. But put Atlanta in as far as the facilities we have. We know Mercedes-Benz. A lot of people like to go there. I like to go there and watch, football matches and football games and concerts and all that stuff. Do we have the facilities just as good as anybody in the country? And that lets us compete where maybe a lot of areas cannot compete for these just because they don't really have the facilities, the infrastructure, and the hotels. Is that where we are?
Yeah, I think we're at an advantage. And again, I'll sound biased here, but I do believe we're at an advantage because we use it in our pitch points, but also we hear it back from the event owners. And we just had the CFP College Football Championship earlier this year. If you remember, Ohio State taking on Notre Dame. We scored very well with the CFP in our hosting. And I think that has, one, positioned us to go back and try to secure it for a third time, where we would be the first city in the U.S. to host it a third time. I think where our advantage is not just the quality of the venues, but how compact they are. And I'm going to speak to downtown because that's where the most large events go because of the facilities and the hotel capacity. But it's a compact, walkable footprint. So you've been to Mercedes-Benz Stadium, everyone, correct? So you know how you could walk from the Mercedes-Benz Stadium or State Farm Arena to the World of Coke, Centers for Civil and Human Rights, the Georgia Aquarium, the College Football Hall of Fame, and you have thousands of hotel rooms surrounding it. That becomes a very usable, user-friendly footprint. So as visitors come in, they're flying into the airport with over 80% of the U.S. populations within a direct flight to Atlanta. One plane, which is very important, right? You get on one, you get here. You ride share or you martyr or you rent a car and get to downtown, you check into your hotel, and then you are walking for the rest of your experience until you head back to the airport. Believe me, when we hear that from visiting fans, we hear that from the events owners, we hear that from visiting media. We house the media in a hotel right next to the stadium. So all they have to do when they go do the reports is they walk. We have a shuttle system if they want it based on weather, but most of them opt to walk back and forth. They can do their reporting. They can walk back and have a nice dinner at the hotel, and a clean hotel, and a nice hotel, and they report very well about us. That goes a long way. The reports coming out of the Super Bowl 53 back in 2019, if you remember that, if you were here, it was a lousy game, but the weather was spectacular, beautiful. It was like this in February. And the media came out, really prominent media, ESPN, said, why isn't the Super Bowl in Atlanta every year? And believe me, we screenshot those texts, and we have that. And we used it in our bid that just landed the 2028 Super Bowl. So we have it coming back in 2028. But Jerry, it's our footprint. It's the walkability. And when you get into the planning mode, that compact campus, if you will, that experience helps in planning because your transportation is a little bit more efficient. Your security and public safety is a little bit more because everything is kind of compact. I'm not going to disparage any other markets, any other big cities, perhaps in the Southwest, that have great stadiums, but they're so far out from the hotel blocks. Great facilities, but it's disconnected. Right, and where our experience, both from a user, from the event, the visiting fan, the participating athletes, and the media and the sponsors that come in, is very user friendly because it's so compact.
So we can expect Centennial Yards and South Downtown
Getting better, right?
will just help us in the future. Which
All of those developments are bringing new opportunities, amenities for fans to participate in, and or sponsors to use for sponsor parties or for media parties. If we do media parties for them, we'd use those space. So now we're adding to the footprint, and it's not just hotels. I think we have 14,000 hotel rooms within the walking distance of the stadium. That's quite a bit. There'll be more coming, but now we've got more amenities coming for shoulder events, because we think about a Super Bowl Sunday. Well, that's one event, but there's 10 days worth of events leading into Super Bowl when we have a Super Bowl. So you've got to have venues to have programming all the way through until Super Bowl Sunday.
Great, Dan. Well, let's talk about some small event you may not have heard of yet coming to Atlanta with maybe 8 matches next June and July.
Anybody heard about the World Cup coming to Atlanta? Yeah. Anybody know how many days until our first match? Take a guess. 271. Because we were counting it down.
The reason we know that is when we come to work every day, there is a big countdown clock right there.
I promise you, I can remember when that used to say 1,271, and now it says 271. I'm like, oh shit, look at that, here it comes.
Well, let's talk about that. How long ago did you have to submit the bid? What's will we hear next as far as FIFA here? As far as give us the lead up to what's going to happen. We know we have 8 matches. That's the second most matches of anyone, and we've got a semifinal. The overall semifinal is going to be in Atlanta, which is awesome. But talk about the next steps. What will we hear more about those matches coming up in the next few months?
Why don't I take you back just to kind of give an example of the world's longest bid and planning process ever, and that's World Cup. The first date, the first email I received about the idea of North America hosting 2026 was on July 7th of 2017. I got an email from a gentleman who was heading up the entity that was going to put forth a bid to FIFA on behalf of North America, and they wanted Atlanta to be a part of that bid. So remember what I told you earlier about when we get those opportunities, we go through the process of time of year, are the hotels available, is the stadium? So we went through that, and it was quickly like, yes, we need to pursue the World Cup. Little known fact, the last time the Men's World Cup was held in the U.S. was in 94. Thank you. Atlanta was not a host city in 94. They had 9 host cities. So part of that reason was, of course, yes, we need to get that because we've had everything else but the World Cup. So we wanted that. We have also now become, after next summer, one of only 2 U.S. cities to host both the Summer Olympics and the World Cup. Us in L.A. now, so a pretty cool company. So that's when it started, July 7th. And again, documentation, discussions, meetings with this entity that was going after the bid, the right to host it. Ironically, not connected to Atlanta United. It was called the United Bid Committee. So we worked with the UBC to make sure that Atlanta was well positioned. Part of the pitch video that the UBC used to FIFA in their actual pitch to FIFA to select North America for 26 featured a lot of Atlanta. They filmed it here in Atlanta. So we showed off our stadium, we showed off Centennial Olympic Park, that kind of thing. Not that it really helped us when FIFA selected us, but it was kind of nice to be a part of that overall bid. So the U.S. and North America, Canada, U.S. and Mexico was selected in 2018 as official host. And then the race was on. And then all the cities that were working together to make sure that North America got the right to host it, all of a sudden we got competitive again, because then it was going to be which cities is the FIFA going to use use for matches. And so they identified that they would need 16 total cities. They were looking for 3 in Canada, 10 in the U.S., and 3 in Mexico. So we were racing to be one of 10 cities back in 2018 and 19 and 20. Then it changed a little bit. One of the Canadian cities dropped out. So then they said, well, let's add a U.S. city. So now it was big 2, 11, and 3. So now we were racing to become one of 11. And in June of 2022, FIFA announced Atlanta as one of 11 U.S. host cities. So as part of that, as you mentioned, we have 8 matches. If you'd like to know the dates, I have them memorized. June 15th, 18th, 21, 24, and 27. July 1st, July 7th, and July 15th, we have a semifinal. So we have 5 matches in the group stage. And then we have 3 matches in July, which is the knockout round. So round of 32, round of 16, and a semifinal. I got to tell you, boy, we really wanted that finals match. It's in New York. We made an effort for it, but FIFA has a qualification of stadiums that host the finals to have a minimum capacity of 80,000. Well, Mercedes-Benz Stadium was just in the mid-70s, and we were pushing that number. We were putting people on the roof, back of house, outside with an open screen. We were counting everything. And they said, no. So good, nice try. So we didn't get the finals, but we got a semifinal. And I got to tell you, having a semifinal is going to be fantastic for us. So Dallas and Atlanta have the semis. New York has the finals. LA will have the opening match. We also tried to get the opening match, but they said you can have the opening match or a semifinal. And we said, we'll take the semifinal. So LA gets the opening match. The U.S. Men's national team is going to be based here, as you all. All of U.S. soccer is going to be based and trained here beginning next spring when they open up their facility. The U.S. men's team will go out west early to begin the first group stage, and then hopefully they find their way back here as we get into the knockout round. So as I mentioned, we are 271 days away. Our host committee is busy planning, working directly with FIFA. FIFA has hired people, local Atlantans, to be kind of our liaisons, and they're living here and working here. So a little bit different model than we saw with CFP or maybe with the NFL is FIFA actually have people here locally that are on contract, and we're working with them. Oh, so sorry. So we remind them, and I know this is being recorded, maybe you can edit this, but we do remind the FIFA reps that live here that you will be living here after World Cup. So please, let's make sure we work well together. And they've heard that. They're really good people. And so it's different. I like having direct contacts for our host committee to work with. And again, the host committee is responsible for a variety of operational work streams. It's transportation, signage, volunteers, local marketing, a fan fest, a number of training sites, a number of different things that we're responsible for. But this is FIFA's event. They're going to run the soccer matches. They're going to run things outside of the stadium. We're here to kind of make sure that that path to success is there for him. But we're also here to make sure that it's not just Metro Atlanta that feels the impact here, that the state of Georgia it feels the impact of hosting a World Cup. And so we're planning programming in 15 different communities throughout the state of Georgia, all points of the state, working closely with the Boys and Girls Clubs across the state of Georgia to make sure that, you know, if those folks can't come down for a match, but that they could still do something in their markets to celebrate the world's biggest sporting event coming to the state. So that's our mindset, and it's going very well for us so far.
That's great. When will we find out which countries are sending teams that'll start off here in Atlanta?
So on December 5th, FIFA will do the final draw. So if you watch the men's or women's NCAA tournament bracket where they kind of seed where the teams will play, that's a similar process for FIFA World Cup. So we'll know which countries are coming in for our group stage matches in December. And that's where I think really a lot of the planning takes off, because then you can start kind of tailoring some of your marketing. If we have England and Germany and countries from all over coming up, we can connect with those local ambassadors and consulates from those countries and figure out how do we want to, one, welcome the teams and fans? How do we want to try to call on businesses within those countries that will likely be coming here to watch their team participate? And perhaps how do we call on them from an economic development standpoint to see if they would like to open an office here or move an office here? So there's a lot of extensions to hosting a big sporting event like this beyond just the sporting event itself. There's a large economic development opportunity, particularly with World Cup because of the global nature of it.
On the world stage, we learned that after the Olympics that a lot of people in the world didn't really know where Atlanta was, but then they knew, and it made economic development a lot easier. One more thing about FIFA because I want to ask you about some other events that are coming up besides the World Cup. How can people here volunteer? What are going to be their volunteer opportunities? You know, maybe sponsoring World Cup, maybe just volunteering as an individual. What are those opportunities now?
Part of our responsibility as a host committee is we do have some fundraising needs to pay for the signage and the volunteer program and other things that we're responsible for. FIFA does allow us to do a sponsorship program, but it's pretty restrictive. They have blocked pretty much every category you can think of for their own use and purposes. So there are a few industries and categories that are open to us, and I'm happy to tell you that Southern Company is one of our host committee sponsors, Georgia Pacific, Cox Enterprises, the Home Depot, and Napa. So we've got 5 great Atlanta brands that have come on. We're talking to a couple more to just be a part of the planning effort to help us make sure that this goes as well as it possibly can. We do have a website, AtlantaFWC26.com is our host committee website. If you ever need information or are looking for information, we update that regularly with an FAQ. And you mentioned volunteers. There's an opportunity to volunteer on there if you fill out the information. The volunteer program for FIFA is a little different than, say, the CFP or a Super Bowl, where we as a host committee don't necessarily operate it. FIFA operates it. They ask us to try to put people into the system that they could work with. So we've had over 30,000 applicants since it launched earlier this summer. So quite a few people are looking to get involved.
Well, the last thing I want to ask, and then we'll open it up for questions from y'all. What are the other future events? We know June and July, go ahead and book it. There's going to be millions of people in town. We've already done an economic impact study, a preliminary one. We're expecting, more than 200,000 people from other states and other countries, which those of you that do these economic impact analyses know that money from another state and another country is good money, because there's no substitution effect that you have to account for there. And we got it pegged at more than $500 million economic impact in basically that 30-something day period. But what other events that you've already booked, and maybe you want to say some that you're bidding on now? Maybe you don't, but I know there's other events after 2026 you've already got booked.
Probably I'd give you more if this wasn't being recorded. I'd tell you all the things, but it's being recorded, so I won't get too much into what's in the future. What we do have landed, though, is a Super Bowl 62 in 2028. Work very closely with the Falcons and the state and the city to land that. Very, very excited. That event went very well for us in 2019, so we're excited to get back into that mix. That 7 to 9 year rotation for the Super Bowl is kind of that sweet spot, so we're happy to do that. But to have it twice within a 10-year period is really a great thing for us. We would like to go after another college football championship game. I mentioned that earlier. We were the first city to host it twice. We'd like to be the first city to host it officially 3 times. So we're looking at that in the future. We have a men's Final Four in 2031, as I mentioned. We are pursuing the Women's World Cup, which is another great event and very important for 2031 as well. And we're kicking the tires on the Rugby World Cup. A lot of World Cups for us here in this mid to late decade going into 2030s. So, and then some other events in 32 and 33. These events are starting to bid out in that 10-year in the distance of about 10 years now, which is longer than it has been in the past. In the past, it's been 4 to 6 years, which doesn't give you a lot of time to kind of get ramped up. But now they're getting smarter because the events are getting bigger, and they realize they need more hotel rooms and more space to do their parties and their events. So they're looking to bid them out and place them farther in advance so that those venues could get locked up. So a lot of activity going on. The next 10 years is going to be pretty special here.
That's awesome to hear.
If I want to add, John Hudson, where's John? John, I know you went to '96 Olympics. We were talking about it. I can't tell you if the Olympics is on the list or not. That's a whole nother conversation. We'll see. That's a different. But I will say one thing to consider on World Cup. You mentioned '94 was the last time I was here. Is correct. We were not a host, as I mentioned. It's every 4 years. So '94 to 26 is 32 years. It's already slotted for Spain in 2030. I'm hearing the Mideast for 2034. There's another part of the world that's looking at it for 2038. So we really could be looking at another 20 to 24 years before the U.S. even sniffs it again. So to say that the World Cup in 26 is kind of once in a lifetime, it really is kind of once in a lifetime. I won't be around doing this in 20 to 24 years if it ever gets back here again. So really excited for it.
Thanks, Dan. How about questions? I'll walk around with the microphone and be glad to let y'all. Here's one on the end to start off. Thank you.